On this episode of Star Trek Universe, Matt and I discuss where Strange New Worlds Season 3 stands now that the SAG AFTRA strike is over, as well as Lower Decks Season 5 teases from showrunner Mike McMahan, when we can expect to see Prodigy Season 1 show up on Netflix, and of course your feedback from Lower Decks 410, Old Friends, New Planets, right after these words from our mystery sponsors.
Welcome to Star Trek Universe, the podcast where you get to listen in on two lifelong friends sit and chat about, this week, Lower Decks. My name's Matthew Carroll.
I am David C. Roberson.
What's up, buddy?
Bad back, as always.
Yeah,
that's about
I heard.
it.
That's terrible, man. I'm sorry.
That's about it. Yeah, I'm used to it, I guess.
I know. Well, yeah, sorry, I'm running crazy late to this podcast, which I did not explain to you. We had to have contractors working on the house, build my mom an apartment, and
I thought they were done with that.
They got done enough for her to move in. So that's exciting. She moved in down there, but there's still a bunch of little stuff to do, and they're getting really close.
Build her gun racks.
Yeah, you gotta get the gun racks. But they got a bunch of like little finishing touches to do that were like the last, like she needed to move in, and they were taking a week vacation. They're all going on a cruise. The whole team was going on a cruise that was doing the renovation, and so they were. I was like, man, I'd really like you guys to finish it this week. So they like rushed and did all the like essential to live here things, the waterworks, the power works, shit like that. And then it was like, there's a bunch of like adding in a grab bar next to the sink, or adding in this or that, like little things that like aren't essential for today, but are getting done this week. So hopefully it'll be completely done by the end of the week, and I'm really, really freaking excited.
Awesome.
Yeah, it's good. So what's happening with you, bud?
I don't know.
No, yeah, you said bad back. I'm sorry.
Yeah.
I double reverse Uno'd you on the what's going on.
You did.
I hear there's news.
Yeah, there is news. But that's not going on with me, but, whatever.
Right.
Fine, I guess we can talk about Star Trek.
Sorry, I thought it was asked and answered. You said bad back.
Kinda, yeah. My back is really bothering me. That's pretty much the end of the story.
Well, that's what I mean. Let's get on to Star Trek so we don't make you sit in your chair for too long.
Sit in my chair.
Sit in your podcasting chair. It's a torture device.
Why did I buy this torture device when I could have just bought a nice cushy chair?
I don't know, man. Choices we make.
The the strike has ended. This writer strike is over. We knew that for a while. SAG is now officially over as well, and they can get back to casting and auditions and all that bullshit. Now, the producing director Chris Fisher told Trek Movie that they had just been 1 day away from flying in the actors before SAG shut them down. And during the strike, Fisher and the producers in Toronto kept a rotating plan going so they could remain, quote, weeks away from being able to go into production once the strikes ended. And over the weekend, Fisher announced on Instagram that he's going back to Toronto for work this week. And it looks like all the other people are starting to talk about it on social media about how they're heading back.
Nice.
People looking to sublet their apartments. People looking for parking spaces in Toronto. It's exciting. There's a buzz, man.
Oh, I feel a buzz, all right.
And this is according to the Directors Guild of Canada. Pre-production for Season 3 of Strange New Worlds has started. And with production set on December 11th, running through July 2024.
Cool.
And I don't know exactly what this means. Like, if it says here, if production on Strange New Worlds Season 3 starts on time in December, filming for one of the 10 episodes could be completed before the Christmas break, with the other 9 episodes filmed in the first half of 2024. For the first 2 seasons, there was around a 15-month gap from the start of production to the season premiere. If this pattern continued, we would expect season 3 to debut in early 2025. And this is the most likely scenario, but they could be moving quicker because the production team did say they were already building the AR wall shots and a bunch of the VFX. So they actually might have a fair amount of the post-production done.
Right. They got rid of a lot further in the previs or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
Cool.
So that's where we are on season 3 of
That's
Strange
awesome.
New Worlds.
I mean, I say awesome. It sounds like it might be as much as a year before we get any Strange New Worlds, which is a bummer with it being 2025. But, I'm excited that there will be new Star Trek. I'm excited to be in general. Like, we've been, I do a show called Multiverse News, which I think I've mentioned on here. And we cover news. And like the second we started that show, I think it was like our second week of production on that podcast, they started the writers and actors strike started, and it's just like suddenly no news can happen. Good thing we started a news show. Like, there's still plenty to cover, and a lot of it had to do with the writers and actors strikes and like what they're fighting over and blah. But it's just sort of like the fun stuff of like, this is coming and that's coming and this is announced, and that just all stopped the second we started the show. So I'm really excited, both for Star Trek and just like everything, all the multiverse of properties we love. I'm just really pumped that things can be produced again.
Absolutely, man. I'm down. I'm excited. You want to hear about this Lower Decks stuff? Mike McMahan is teasing a bunch of the Lower Decks stuff.
Cool.
He says, Season 5 Mariner is much more joyful. She's still Mariner. She's still chaotic. She's still hilarious, but she isn't weighed down by the weight of not having spoken about Cedo. He says Tendi will return. Tendi is not being written out of the show. This isn't a bad thing for Tendi. She is going to go and kick some ass. Tendi's been trying to figure out, is she Starfleet or is she the mistress of the winter constellations? And at the end of the episode, she's like, no, I'm Devana Tendi. I'm something new that exists in both. And my sister wants me to come back to Orion. Well, she might have bitten off a little more than she can chew. He says there's some really, really funny stuff for T'Lyn in season 5. I don't want to give away too much. How could I say this? T'Lyn's story in season 5 involves her and another character in an interesting way, and you see T'Lyn embrace science and Starfleet more than I think people anticipate. He had a little bit about Ma'ach, the lower decker Klingon who rose to the rank of captain. He says Ma'ach is not on the same path as T'Lyn, but I love Klingons, and I love him, and you get more. This is not the end of him.
Sweet.
He says, we know season 4 took some serialized elements we had done before and kind of ramped them up across the whole season, but there's a little bit of serialization in season 5, but not to the extent that you saw this season. This one was a special take.
I don't know how I feel about that. It's so interesting. Like, that is almost always a huge discussion when we're podcasting about any of these shows, is like how they handle the amount of serialization versus episodic storytelling. And it's just like, I really liked this season. It felt like a really good balance for me. Like, I feel like every episode had its own identity, but it all built towards something. This very much used the burn notice model.
What's the burn notice model exactly?
The burn notice model, which I love that show, is every episode is its own thing, but it always starts and ends with like a little bitty nugget of the overarching story. Sometimes the center story has something to do with the overarching story, and kind of gets the story of each episode sort of like moves closer and closer to the main villain of the season or whatever. But there's always some sort of like, he's always like, I need to find out who's burned me. And it's like, he has some conversation at the beginning of the episode about who burned him. Then he goes and helps a stranger, a la the Hulk. And then the end of the episode, he's like, I got another clue. And then the next episode starts with like, all right, I got this clue. It leads me to the next clue. And then he goes and helps a stranger for 42 minutes and then comes back with a 30-second tag about the next clue. And it's sort of like, it leads you through the story. And then it always ends up being a really good epic last two-parter where he's like dealing with the actual story, the bigger story. But every episode feels fulfilling because you got a nice little story about some stranger that he had to help.
Yeah.
Was it like It's like the Hulk or Highway to Heaven.
I was thinking Batman the Brave and the Bold because they did it in one season.
Oh, nice. I haven't seen Batman the Brave and the Bold. You've raved about it over the years.
You should absolutely see it.
I will. It's really hard for me to get into some animation. In general, animation in general is hard for me to get into, but it's like certain ones I get into, and the ones I loved as a kid, like Batman the Animated Series, have like a special place in my heart, you know. But it's hard for me to get into, like, for whatever reason, Brave and the Bold came out after I was like, I'd kind of left that behind. But I would like to see it. You've told me, so many times it's how good it is.
Yeah, I don't know. I was kind of toying with the idea of watching that show, and then I saw the last episode on YouTube, and I was like, I just saw like a clip accidentally, like it was like on a playlist or something, and I was like, what was that? That was crazy. And it was literally Paul Rubens as Batmite, making parts of the sky go away and like get turned like to snow, like a TV screen.
Mm-hmm.
And he was like, "That's right, Batman. People are tuning out." And I realized it was a piece of the final episode where Batmite's like gotten bored with this version of Batman and making it get canceled.
That's funny. I've often told the story about mine and your experience with Buffy and Angel, where we had never really watched much Buffy and Angel, and then for some reason we both caught the puppet episode of Angel, which is in the 12th produced season of that canon. It's like the last season of that canon. We both watched the same episode and then decided to go back to the beginning and start from the beginning and watch the entire thing. It's very weird, but like that kind of reminds me of it, like especially Batmite being such a silly character, and then like it being in the final season. That's really funny.
Yeah. Oh, if it helps, Batman the Brave and the Bold, Matt, there's a musical episode starring Neil Patrick Harris as the Music Meister.
Nice. Oh, I'm sorry, just not stay on Star Trek, but I feel like this is very adjacent. Isn't it like this week that Doctor Who with Neil Patrick Harris and David Tennant drops?
I don't know, but I'm not caught up, so I can't watch it yet.
I missed a lot of the Whittaker years, but or a year or something. But like I might just jump in because it's David Tennant.
I can see doing it. I'm not going to.
I get that. I understand. So, what other news we got? Any other news?
Yeah. Star Trek Prodigy Season 1 is officially coming to Netflix on Christmas Day, December 25th, 2023. That's what it is, y'all. And we don't know when the second season is coming out. It will be 2024, but it's close to being completed.
Oh, that's cool. That's really cool. I know they've been saying this coming, and then they're going to play season 2 after that, right? That's cool. I'm excited for that, both for season 2 eventually to come, but also for it to be available, and then also because introduce a new crop of fans to Star Trek.
Yeah,
it's very cool.
Yeah, a crop of fans.
What do they call a group of Star Trek fans? Oh yeah, a crap.
No, what do they call a group of Star Trek fans? A murder. All right, so what we got next is feedback. You want to do feedback?
Yeah, let's talk about feedback. This is for Lower Decks season finale.
Yeah, 410. Well, actually, the first one from Tim Castillo is for 409. And he says, I want to write in every week, but you guys are so fast now. Yeah, we're not now. Season's over. It takes us 3 weeks to get back with feedback. A slick, slippery, well-oiled machine. Yeah. Good on you, boys. I digress. This episode blew me away. I teared up when Mariner talked about Cito, and then bringing back Nick Locarno as the season villain is just amazing. There were further stories about Cito outside of the show itself, so I wonder if they might bring her back also. They did. But that probably would have played stronger if she was revealed at the end of the episode along with or instead of Locarno. She went out a redeemed character and a hero. So it would be a bit of a betrayal to her character, whereas Locarno remained a heel. So this makes sense. This may not be the funniest episode, but it was really good. There were still some good laugh lines, even something just as small as Boimler complaining about having sticks in his boots. The Beast story playing off of how conspicuous Starfleet make themselves, going to underworld planets in their uniforms, was great. Muds is a great inclusion too, and holy crap, I laughed so much at the not a puppet. Also, perhaps it's just unavoidable at this point, but did you guys get some Star Wars vibes from the locations in this episode? Large building in a forest with a giant satellite dish, a hub of crime and villainy on a desert wasteland planet, and then the Klingon saying, I have a plan, kind of like Han Solo in Return of the Jedi. Okay, I'm reading too much into this. What can I say? I like the Star things. Be they treks, wars, gates, crafts. Star Kid was fun too, but I might not revisit that one. It probably hasn't aged well. This planet is without honor. Tim Castillo.
Yeah, that was a particularly good episode.
Yeah, I feel like I had a bit of a Casey Kasem there. This planet is without honor. Tim Castillo.
For sure.
Yeah, that was a great episode, and I don't know what else to say about it. I don't know about Star Kid either.
Yeah, I don't know what Star Kid is. Did he like Star Girl? Wasn't that on the CW for a minute?
Yeah, it was. It was a good show.
Yeah,
I like Star Girl.
Yeah,
that was one of those like co-produced by HBO, so it had an actual budget.
Star Kid. Oh, I've seen this. I've seen this poster, like in a. I think it's a movie. I guess a movie probably. Anyway, yeah, cool. I also like the Star things. Star Wars more lately. Been enjoying it.
Yeah, I just haven't gotten to it. I'm just.
Yeah, I particularly enjoyed Ahsoka as a weekly like watch, you know, like just the conversation around it, like the banter, the people putting out memes, like it was all just a lot of fun. Same thing with Loki. Like I'm really pumped that Loki was so good. I feel like we had a bit of a drought of really content I was excited about, and like lately I've been really excited about a lot of things, so it's been fun. Yeah,
I haven't gotten to see season 2 of Loki yet.
I think you'll love it.
I still need to see whatever all the other shit is.
You just come over here and watch Loki with me.
No.
It'll be fun.
I gotta watch Secret Invasion. And
no, you don't.
I gotta watch Wakanda Forever and the Ant-Man and the Wasp 3.
You do need to watch Wakanda Forever. No, you don't. I'm sorry. I was thinking about for Secret Invasion.
But I do know what I haven't seen the Marvels yet, but I know what the Stinger is, and I've been really excited about it.
Yeah, Stinger is very exciting. We won't spoil it here because this is definitely tangential and a big spoiler in a movie that just came out. But yeah, the big good Stinger for. I think like it's so funny. Everybody's been talking about the fall of Marvel, and it's still like having bad like run in the theaters with the Marvels or whatever.
Yeah,
but like I think
as I predicted.
All right.
I've been saying for years the critics would unjustly turn against Marvel.
Oh, well, I don't think it's unjust. I really don't. Like I think they've had a bad run.
That's because you're like them.
Whatever. I'm a huge fan and like a huge proponent of Marvel, but I think they like it's not even that they've had a bad run. It's that they like they've had a pretty good run of content. It's just they've lost the plot on the leading from one story to the next they've lost the thing exactly we were talking about with this show with Lower Decks. They've lost the plot on when a thing should be episodic and how much the balance between episodic and serialized. It's like it's so important to like everything, and Marvel it's hugely important too. And it's like sometimes they just zig when they should zag on that stuff.
Yeah, I always think they've been weak on that. Always.
I don't.
Because they've always left a movie in a certain place, and you're like, oh, that's going to be interesting to explore. And then they pick up, and that's been resolved off screen.
Oh, see, to me, that's something different. But yes, that has been a problem. That's only been a problem for a couple of things, though. There's only like a couple of issues that were done that way, I feel like. But it is, I mean, you're getting these glimpses of people's lives like 2 or 3 years apart a lot of times. Yeah. Particularly Tony's story feels that way.
Definitely that
but
one.
But that's the one that I think is most standout. But what I'm talking about is like the story itself either not feeling like a full meal, as it were, like it's not self-contained enough, so it just feels like an appetizer for the bigger story. The early first 3 phases, sometimes they feel so much like a meal that it's frustrating. Like you go to see, I don't know, Ant-Man, and you're like, Ant-Man and the Wasp, and you're like, it's right before Thanos. They're really going to get into some Thanos-y things. And then it's like, they barely get into Thanos. You know what I mean? Like it's barely, they barely talk about it. It's not in the actual body of the movie, that sort of thing, where it's like I was almost frustrated at where I think they've gone too far in the other direction now, but I actually think it's a better, much stronger move to make each property its own story. It's the Burn Notice model, man. I'm telling you, it's the Burn Notice model.
Yeah, it's the thing everybody was complaining about when they did it, like with Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. and Netflix. The Netflix shows, like everyone was like, it has nothing to do with Thanos. Right,
totally. Well, that's different because that's like the canon. That's a break in canon, which is a whole different issue. But like, I do think that like
in some ways, yeah.
I've been advocating the fact that like Marvel seems to be taking the notes that like Phase 4 and 5 have not been hitting like they wanted them to, and I think some of that is them not doing that Burn Notice thing right. Like they're either, and they break it in both directions. Like it's not like one thing or the other. Sometimes something is so connected that you can't follow it unless you've seen everything else. And sometimes something is not so unconnected that it feels like unimportant. So it's like they did a really good job of balancing that in the first 3 phases. And then it feels like for phase 4 and 5. And I think part of it is just like they're putting out so much content that there's like, you see 4 series, 4 seasons of shows before something gets called back to. So you're just like, when are they going to talk about those rings at the end of Shang-Chi? When's it going to happen? And it's like, we're what, 7, 8, 9 properties later, and it seemed like such a big thing, and it still hasn't happened. You know,
and it's been like what, 7 or 8 movies since that freaking giant person was birthed out of the earth in Eternals, and they've never brought it up again.
Yeah, but that's a little less. I hear you. They have brought it up once, but it was in She-Hulk.
Oh yeah.
But
I loved Eternals, and I hate the shade that it's gotten.
Oh really?
I hate how much they just have ignored it completely. Like,
well, see, that's the thing though. That's exactly the problem. When something happens now in Marvel and you don't hear about it for 5 movies, I don't know if it's because they're ignoring it or it's because they're in such production clip that it's like, I don't know when they plan to bring it up again. It may not be that they're ignoring it. It's just like, it's only been a year and a half or something, but it's like we've seen so many properties that it feels like that should have been brought up by now. You know what I mean? But it doesn't.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Also, there's just so much I can't keep up, and I feel like I am a general audience member almost with Marvel now at this point.
Exactly. Yeah, they ran off some of their diehards.
I don't know what is okay to watch out of order or what. I don't. And I feel like I'm going to miss something, so I just don't watch any of it.
Right. I understand. And I do think that, like, the strength of the old days of S.H.I.E.L.D. and Defenders was if you were a big fan, you could fall in love with S.H.I.E.L.D. and Defenders, but if you were a casual, you didn't think that Daredevil was going to give something, like, was going to show you something that you couldn't, like, follow the next Avengers movie. So if you didn't watch Daredevil, you didn't feel like you couldn't go see Endgame. He might show up in Endgame. Who knows? We all wanted it, but like it wasn't a thing where like if he showed up, you'd feel like, oh, I guess I should have watched that freaking Defenders show. You know what I mean? But like, yeah, now it feels everything is so connected and happening so fast that it's hard to keep the size audience they had.
Yep, it's tough.
It is tough. It's a tough nut to crack.
It's a tough nut to bust.
Indeed. If you're having a trouble, go to bluechew.com/Star Trek Universe. Just kidding. We don't have that.
No. All right, John Plays What says, in your discussions last week, I got to thinking of what's the funniest way they could make a Tom Paris, Nick Locarno joke. And I honestly want them to break canon or make some new canon. My headcanon, when Tom Paris was a baby, he and his family went on a trip and at some point used a transporter. During one of their transports, a slight surge overloads Tom Paris's pattern in the buffer, but no one realizes until they are long gone. His family leaves, knowing nothing. But the transporter tech tries to solve and resolve the issue, and a transporter clone of Tom materializes and is adopted by the Locarno family. Hence, Nick Locarno exists and looks and sounds and acts exactly like Tom Paris, and just so happens to also be a juvenile delinquent. I know they won't do it, but I think it would be a hilarious way to explain the resemblance.
Definitely.
Someone pointed out in an episode of Voyager, Admiral Paris had a picture of quote-unquote Tom as a cadet on his desk, and it's just a screenshot of Nick Locarno from the first duty.
That's ridiculous.
And I love the idea specifically because like when I was graduating from elementary school, my grandfather took video of another kid graduating and thought it was me.
Amazing.
So I love the idea that like, old Admiral Paris just has like a picture of Nick Locarno on his desk thinking it's Tom.
That's really funny.
I really love that joke.
Yeah, that's awesome.
Tim Castillo writes in about 410 now.
Tim
says maybe this one will make it. Well, they both did, buddy. Hey guys, Thursdays have been great days lately, or at least a little better than usual. So was Locarno really dead? Maybe there will be some Locarno lizards on the planet. They could have the same face and everything. Pretty excited to see Mistress of the Winter Constellation next season. Devana seems to be embracing it. I know it's animated, but hey, they did a great job giving her a killer expression as she walked out of frame. The way they left her at the end almost makes me wonder if there's plans for a spinoff with Tendi and the Orions, or just set up for next season. Dude, I would take a spinoff with Tendi.
Oh, yeah.
Let's make it live action, though.
Ooh. I would be very down.
Yeah. I like how they replaced her in the group. Not only does T'Lyn have science chops, she's got an apostrophe in the same place in her name. That's funny. The pan to the stars to credit was a fun way to end the episode. I gotta say, there was some fantastic camera work in this episode and throughout the season. It doesn't get talked about much with animation, but the framing and composition of many shots have been truly cinematic. I love it. I agree.
Yeah.
Getting Cito and Wes in the flashback was good fun. I love that this show can bounce around the universe like this. Always down for seeing characters from other shows and posts of the canon, and getting the original actors back was great. I don't know if you guys saw it when it came out, or have since, but one of my favorite animated movies as a kid was Titan A.E. This episode had scenes straight from that movie. The ice belt surrounding a planet was in that movie. Same design. I thought it was an awesome callback, especially since at the end they made a new planet. I just got really big Titan AE vibes from the episode, and it seemed to be on purpose, but who knows. Oddly enough, there's a shot in that movie that looks a lot like the Badlands that the Maquis would hide in, and where Voyager got lost. I'm not saying it's a snake eating its own tail, but art is like that sometimes. I momentarily thought the trinary shield was Q, and I couldn't imagine where the episode was going until I immediately realized it was just a big shield. Anyway, love the episode, love the season, love your podcast, and I'm enjoying the TOS episodes too. Oh, thanks, man. Yeah. Now, where the heck is Wes and not Data's daughter? The Ready Room almost seems like a kind of purgatory for Will Wheaton. Write him a good part now that you can, is what I say. They can't give us that scene from Picard and not pay it off somehow. They've certainly never done that before. Watch out for shoulder blades, Tim Castillo. Thank you, Tim. Yeah, I thought about the Q shield from Encounter at Farpoint as well when I saw that. Titan AE, I never actually watched, which is surprising because it was written by Joss Whedon.
Oh, yeah? I remember thinking about watching that and never getting around to it, and that must be why.
Yeah, and that was, it was a Whedon thing.
I may have to check it out.
Yep. Yeah, I really want them to do a deep dive on the supervisors, on Wesley Crusher. I want to see, I basically want to see Wesley Crusher as Kang. Talking about the timelines branching off and showing different versions of what used to be and shit like that.
That'd be awesome. It's tough because the multiverse is, I don't know, this is well-trodden criticism, but multiverse is kind of in everything now. It's almost like the multiverse is its own genre of fiction, which I guess it is in a way.
It's always been a part of every, Star Trek and
for sure,
DC and Marvel for a long time.
Oh, for sure. But it just feels like some things are getting so multiversal. Obviously, with Marvel doing it, with getting it more in DC, with the movies, getting it with Flash particularly, and getting it in just everything. I was watching Rick and Morty this morning, and I mean, obviously that show's been about the multiverse from the beginning, but the way they use the multiverse feels like the kinds of jokes they make about it feels so self-critical of the genre of multiverse storytelling in a way. There's a point where you've got shows like The Boys and Rick and Morty, they're sort of taking the piss out of the things we love, where it almost feels like those things need to adapt and change because they've been done to death to the point that they're parodyable. You know what I mean? They've been done to the death to the point where they can be so infinitely parodied. And it almost feels like shows like Rick and Morty and The Boys feel, and Invincible, feel like this sort of almost not really criticism, but a loving send up of a genre that is almost feels like it's been explored to death, and now it needs to evolve so that it can get the next surprising kind of media out of it. And I think things like Everything Everywhere at Once is an advancement of that type of storytelling.
I'm not sure it is. I feel like that movie specifically was almost like an indie version of the multiverse,
Oh, for sure, it was.
Yeah, it's like an indie movie. I mean, it is an indie movie, but it feels like an indie movie. Like the quirky ideas, almost.
Yeah.
There's not that predictable plot structure necessarily. It's just sort of.
Well, I would contend that that's where a lot of the innovation happens in these types of stories. A lot of times, it's you get those sorts of up and coming universes that sort of tell a story that's so different that it makes everyone think about the multiverse in a different way or a different way of using it. And then that inspires a bunch of people working within these franchises to sort of well, what can we do that's kind of like taking this new creative upstart energy of the indie film and put it into our stuff,
Yeah. I also feel like that one was I feel like most people who are making mainstream multiverse movies are going to look at that and go that was really cool. That was also really complicated.
Sure. No,
we're not doing that.
Yeah, you're probably right.
Kang has a device.
I don't know. I think of it you got a story about vengeance, and it's you've had stories about vengeance forever, and then you get Memento, a story about vengeance, and it's like that's the indie film version that director goes on to produce Batman 10 years later. You know what I mean? Like, and it's sort of like, and that infuses new life and creativity and a version of Batman that hasn't existed, and the Joker that we all love from those movies and all that stuff, like, comes from the mind of someone making this sort of vengeance tale on a smaller level. You know, it's sort of the same sort of thing where, like, who knows what the Daniels or someone inspired by them will do in 10 years in one of these franchises. And that's kind of what, like, gets me excited about this stuff, you know? That's why, like, and then 10 years later, the Dark Knight trilogy, while it's still great, it feels like a lot of stuff, it's launched 1,000 things. Like, a lot of stuff has used that gritty, realistic tone, and now it's like, what's the next thing that's going to hit? Is it the sort of like quirky, you multiversal stuff of Everything Everywhere at Once? Will that be something that's adopted by 1,000 franchises, or will it be? Yeah. I love that kind of like, I guess, like, overarching tale of what inspires what and how these stories talk to each other. I just think it's so cool.
Yeah, that's interesting.
What's next? Sorry, I talked us into a cul-de-sac.
I'm just sitting here going, I don't like Memento. I don't like the Dark Knight trilogy. I don't know what to say.
Yeah, I mean, like, I think I despise portions of the Dark Knight trilogy, but certain parts of it are amazing. And some of those parts, I think that Aaron Eckhart and Heath Ledger as the villains in the second one are, like, top notch. And the origin story, the way they tell the origin story of Batman and Batman Begins is awesome to see on live action. You know, I love that.
Yeah. If I could just take, like, a little potato peeler and just, like, pull out Heath Ledger and Michael Caine from those movies and put them in 3 better movies.
Yeah.
I would.
I hear you. I do. But I guess I probably, maybe I like those movies better than you do. I don't know. I hate the third one. Hate it with a passion. But
Me too.
But I know you've got a lot of problems with the way Batman is portrayed, like him giving up and all that stuff. And I know we've talked about all this before, I'm sure.
I mean, even just putting it aside, there's just so many plot holes in the third one. Like, it just makes no sense. It makes no sense.
The third one is trash. Nolan is a planner. He really plans out his movies, and I think he had a really good plan for the third one. Probably.
I don't know what he had.
I'm guessing he had a really good... I've been saying this for years, but I think he had a really good plan. Then Heath Ledger's death screwed up his plan, and his backup plan was terrible.
I don't know that he had a great plan, because I know his plan, as he said, was always to have Bruce Wayne overcome the crutch of being Batman.
Sure.
So, and then, like, when you take that and you start, like, backtracking it through Dark Knight, it kind of ruins Dark Knight for me, because of, like, how he's just being a dick, like a total cock-blocking dick, trying to, like, get Rachel to leave her fiance and shit. Like, dude, you're an asshole. Like, you stopped organized crime, so now you think she's going to run away with you? Like, your parents didn't die from organized crime, Bruce. It was a mugger in the street, you piece of shit.
Sure.
I don't know. I just... I have my issues.
Sure. Yeah. I hear you. Anyway. And that's neither here nor there. I think those movies, where they advance the plot is not the plot. The advancements that Nolan made to that canon are not, like, plot centric. They are stylistic, and they are they gave, I mean, you know, I think after the first Oscars ever won by, like, a comic book movie are those movies.
I don't follow Oscars because I think it's a sham. Everybody pays to get nominated, and I just don't give a shit. So.
Sure, but it's what makes...
Sorry.
Well, it's fine, but, like, that makes really great actors be willing to do movies that they wouldn't have been willing to do 5 years ago. Mm-hmm. Like, I'm not putting on tights. Oh, wait, who put on tights? Oh, maybe I'll do that. You know, Nolan advanced the storyline, advanced the genre in that he got these, like, better actors, like, better quality actors willing to put in their best work, not just, like, get really good actors for a paycheck to put on some tights and scream like whatever Tommy Lee Jones.
But you know what? He also, like, set DC fans back in a way that, like, he brainwashed so many DC fans into thinking that DC has to be dark, gritty, and grounded. And I'm like, if you look at a single comic book, you know that DC is anything but in so many ways.
Right. I'm with you. Like, there's obviously, like, when something is as big as those movies were, it causes ripples that are positive. It takes the positives and the negatives and reproduces them over all the content. Mm-hmm. Anyway, we got more feedback?
Yeah, we do. We have one more, and let me just say that I am totally open to a Star Trek multiverse. More of that. I want to see more.
Oh, yeah. I'm definitely interested.
I love the multiverse.
I like the multiverse a lot.
The one with Jet Li is one of my favorite movies. Like,
yeah. Oh, it's great. Very, very fond memories of that movie. The thing that, when it becomes so expansive to the point that none of the that some of the stories are just there to serve other stories, I think it starts to become kind of problematic, I guess. My Rick and Morty discussion earlier, one of the things that's going on is, like, Rick is chasing someone in the multiverse, and it's just like
Rick Prime,
yeah. And so there was an episode I just watched, and I won't spoil the whole episode or anything, but, like, he basically just starts bringing forward, like, multiple versions of Rick and just murdering them over and over and over, just like Rick. He's killing Ricks like they're nothing. Some are robot Ricks, some are real Ricks that are whatever. Like, just Rick. It's just like, it starts to be, and it is a joke. But, like, I think that same sort of thing that makes that a joke is something that is real in storytelling when you're like, okay, we've seen 1,000 versions of this character. Now maybe none of them matter. You know what I mean? And, like, so I really like the way that Star Trek has done the multiverse in the past, where, like, we get specific instances of the multiverse, like the Mirror Universe. And of course we've seen others, especially with time travel. It's just, we saw that Worf episode where he keeps coming home from the parallels. Yeah. And so like, coming off the tournament. We've seen little instances of it, but, like, I feel like when you get to the point where you're just, like, opening, I'd like to see them have touch points with other multiverses, like the Mirror Universe, maybe explore a few more. I don't really want to see, like, it get to that Rick and Morty point where you're like, well, there's 1,000 Janeways, and they all make different decisions, and it's like, okay, then it starts to feel like there's no weight to any of the decisions,
Well, I mean, that kind of thing is perfect for Rick and Morty.
Exactly.
I don't want to see, like, Timothy Chalamet running around as Tony Stark, necessarily. Yeah. I mean, actually, I said it. And
now I really want it. Now. I actually think he might be. I kind of like it. Yeah. He might be a great Iron Man, like an alternate Iron Man. I think, like, I don't really like Timothy Chalamet that much, but, like, you say that, and I'm immediately on board, like a young Iron Man. It
sounded great.
It sounds awesome.
Internally, I was just like, I don't want to see that, and then I said it, and it hit my ears, and I was like, oh God, that sounds great.
Yeah, no, that's a great casting. I honestly think, like, he has the same sort of frenetic energy and the same sort of, like, good ability to sort of, like, say aside comments and, like, be a snide while also being heartfelt. Like, he's a great Tony Stark option. Like, I really think Tony Stark, like, right now, like, do it right now. Make him one of the, like, multiversal Tony Starks who's, like, still young and his, like, father isn't dead or something. There's still a Howard Stark around, and see him, like, do a just totally different thing, Like, it could be really fun.
Come on, Marvel. Iron Man into the Ironverse.
Yeah, totally. Oh, dude, I would be down with that. What's the lesson of Iron Man? Like, you got the lesson of Spider-Man is, like, with great power comes great responsibility. And in the end, all Marvel is kind of that same lesson. But, like, I feel like Iron Man's lesson would be much more selfish and self-serving and, like, kind of cheeky, I guess.
Have a drink, make cool shit.
Yeah. Have a drink, make cool shit, save the world. It's what we do.
Keep your creations close to your heart.
Nice. Pretty good.
Respect the arc.
Ooh, you gotta respect the arc.
Reactor.
Dude, go watch Loki season 2. Don't watch anything else. Just jump to it. It doesn't matter. Nothing else you've missed. I tell you this as someone who's seen it all and talked about it all for hours on end. All the things you missed are worth seeing, but nothing you missed will touch Loki. season 2.
Okay.
Like you can just jump to it, and it's worth jumping to, and you're gonna get things spoiled, and it's worth it.
Yeah, I did watch Guardians Volume 3 out of order, and I feel dirty.
Oh man, I get that. I do. I mean, I'm right there with you. I've watched everything in order too.
Yeah.
Ooh man, see, this is where it comes. DC, Marvel, Star Trek. Me and you love Star Trek, and you love DC, and I love Marvel. Like, we both love each, but like, those are the things we focus on our podcast and stuff.
Well, I focus on DC because you started the Marvel cast. So, like, I was like, I want to do a podcast. I had been wanting to do one for like 2 or 3 years before you started doing Marvel. Mm-hmm. But I do like DC more.
Well, if you recall, I did beg you to start the Marvel one with me for like a year, and then when Guardians dropped, I was like, "Well, screw you, Dave. I'm doing my own."
Yeah, you did, but rightly so. I think I was like, I am not well versed enough in Marvel to add much.
Yeah, I just never had that problem.
I don't think. I don't feel like I would have served it, and maybe you're right, because you don't know anything.
No, yeah, exactly. Yeah, I know nothing. Just get out there and talk about the stuff I like. And that's the thing that made our show, MCU Cast, Marvel Cinematic Universe Podcast. Check it out, guys. That's the thing that made that show its own thing. Is like Jeff is more of a comics fan than me, but he's not that deep on them either. And we just make it clear that like we are a show that is focused on what comes out in the movies, and we're going to talk about what has happened in these movies and how they connect. That's what we're talking about. Like, we're not trying to tell you the perfect comics background. And sometimes people write in and we read their feedback about the comics background, but it's like, this is what we're talking about. I'm the same way with Star Trek. Like, I love Star Trek, but I'm not nearly as well versed as you.
Yeah, I'm sick.
I know.
And I know people who are way more well versed than I am.
Right. Totally.
Those people are nerds.
It's like that thing about it, when is someone too rich? It's like, anyone richer than you. that old joke of like, yeah. That guy's just greedy. He's got $3 more than me. And then it's like, who's nerdy? Anyone nerdier than me?
Yeah. Those guys are losers.
They've got a problem.
All right, so Stu Little has our last piece of feedback, titled Livick Part 2. He says, hello. Stupid obstructive admirals and their dumb taking the bigger picture into account and trying not to escalate a crisis into an interstellar war.
Yeah, that was like, I do think that like, it's funny and it's lower decks and that's the point. But like, she should absolutely be court-martialed for what she did. Like, just because the admirals are happy with her because it turned out well. Like, no, that's how Kirk became the monster that he was.
I think it's funny if like somewhere on lower decks, like a version of like cancel culture happened with the Federation, where if like a captain, like too many captains were breaking the rules but saving the entire galaxy, and Starfleet demoted them for breaking the rules, and then people were trying to like, there was like an uproar online and like canceling of Starfleet, so they're like, fine. If you save the galaxy, we'll give you a pass on the rules.
There's a survey or a petition online to get Mayor's mom her job back.
Yeah.
I could not think of her name right now. Carroll. Oh, Carroll.
Carroll Freeman. I always think, well, the first thing I think is Robin, because that's who she played on, Dawn Wells played on Hanging with Mr. Cooper. And then I go, no, Jaleesa. Nope, that's who she played on A Different World. I've got like 4 or 5 different names for her that pop into my head before I get to Carroll Freeman, including the Irish girlfriend of Andy Richter on Andy Richter Controls the Universe.
I remember that.
She's like, yes, I'm Irish. He's like, you're Irish? It's a great show.
Yeah.
All right. Let's go back to Stu. Stu says, Nick says they're an unaligned fleet, but doesn't being together make them aligned? Yes, I think so. I think they're just hanging out. Because the minute that he tried to give them orders, they got mad.
Yeah, well, they're unaligned to any previously known faction. So it's like a fleet that they can't. They're not connected to a government, and clearly they're not a government themselves.
Yeah, and then they're the first fleet like this.
Mm-hmm. The Maquis.
Despite whether or not the Maquis want to have a word. Which I do love that, and I'm not sure we said that. We talked about that on the show. I do love that Nick Locarno tried to start his own Maquis, essentially.
Yeah,
and Tom Paris betrayed them to the Maquis.
Yeah, it's pretty great.
Stu says, quote, I will be damned if I wait for politicians to decide her fate. Okay. My thesis on whenever a TV show does this sort of thing, because I rail on going rogue plots a lot. You either believe in democracy or you don't. I understand the feeling that exceptions can be made in desperate times, etc., but the fact this seems to always be the default, the characters doing this shit are rarely depicted as wrong, is getting really tiring and worrisome a bit in terms of message, especially coming in Star Trek, where a big central theme is people coming together and working out a problem in unity, constantly having characters say screw that and doing what they want because it's easier and more exciting to write it like that seems to fundamentally go against that. And I know in real life politicians can fuck things up and complicate things, but this isn't real life. It doesn't have to keep being analogous. It could instead be aspirational by showing how the system is supposed to work, instead of doing another I love the Federation, too bad it sucks balls, so I have to behave in an unfederation-y way. Thing like this. Thesis over. Note, I originally had a whole bit in this where I talked about Ahsoka doing a similarly annoying obstructive politician thing, which I thought was deeply flawed, but I realized some listeners might not have seen that yet, so I didn't want to spoil it. Don't worry, we just talked about DC and Marvel
this particular
for an hour.
episode has been a very travel in the multiverse, as we could say.
Absolutely. No, I kind of go. I'm down with it.
Here's the thing. I agree with him. I think it's a dangerous precedent, and it's like a dangerous thing to teach people that like you should always go against the group. But I think there's a value to doing plots like this. But I do think removing all punishment kind of ruins it. Like, I actually think it would have been more powerful and more powerful from both directions if Carroll Freeman goes completely, or Kirk or whoever goes completely rogue, and like they may save the galaxy or they may save someone that's important to them, but then they're punished for it because that's still wrong, and it's still and them as the valiant hero is supposed to say. And I think she did say this. Didn't she come and say, I'll accept any punishment that's given to me or whatever? Yeah. I think that's how the episode ended, which I think is the right thing. Like, I think that's what should happen. I accept the punishment. And then she should end up, you're in jail for 2 years or whatever. You mutinied for all intents and purposes. But that's the thing about Star Trek. There is some sort of rules in Starfleet that seem to be the captain has some choice in the matter of what rules to follow and what not to. They've talked a lot about that over the years. Like, sometimes you're the boots on the ground and you have to make a decision that the guys upstairs don't like. But, like, disregarding a direct order and endangering everyone is something that should be punished by society. But at the same time, we see it from Carol's perspective, and we see that she did the right thing in the end, and she saved everyone, so it's really hard for us to buy as a... I think that generally if you want to be a hero who thinks they should go rogue against the system, you should be willing to accept the punishment. And I don't think it would be wrong for the system to punish you anyway, even if the results are good. There
is a through line in all of Star Trek, dating back to the original series, that bureaucracies become top heavy and wind up not being idealistic.
Yeah.
it happens over and over and over. And sometimes they're like, this doesn't look good, don't do it. And then Kirk's like, or whoever, whatever captain is on the ground going, no, this is actually way different than you think it is, and we got to stop it.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, you look at Kirk running to get Spock on Genesis in Star Trek 3, yeah. But then on the way back, he saved the world. Cool. And they did punish him.
Yeah, they did. Which I was gonna bring up. It's like that's a really good example of them like punishing him, but in a way that like pleases the fans in a huge way. You'll demote you, Admiral Kirk. You're now back to being the role you always wanted.
Yeah, and like it was very clear that they knew that's exactly what he wanted. Exactly. Like he's like, this is behavior unbefitting an admiral. Guess we'll have to make you a captain, you know. And also, like, I think I am gonna go even further and say Kirk is maybe to blame for the way the Federation treats these law-breaking captains now. Maybe. They're just like, why would you do this? That we told you not to do it. Well, I don't know. Needs of the many, and it also seemed like it made sense. Okay.
Right.
I like that. You got a real Kirk thing about you, boy.
Right. Well, that's where courts should come in handy. Like this is another season that should end with Carroll in handcuffs. But like, I do think that you then you go through with the trial and you make the case in front of like, you know, a jury of your peers and all that stuff. You know, you don't just have the politics seems to be swaying your way. We're gonna let you off with a warning or whatever. You know. Yeah.
I mean, like, I feel like the fans would complain that it was a really boring show, but I really, really want to see just, like, I want, like, an Aaron Sorkin inner workings of Starfleet.
Oh, yeah, me too. I would love it. I would love it. I'd love to see that, but I understand that's not the show they're making, but they could just have they could have a line at the end of this, like, well, when you get back to Space Dock, the admirals are going to have a talk with you. And then the next season could start with like, you know, an offhanded line about how they were slapped on the wrist because they saved everyone, but they're on thin ice or something, you know, like that. Like that's sort of like, it just like, at least there's some sort of consequences because you did a thing you knew was rogue. You made a decision against the collective. You don't get to make a decision for everybody. Like, I think that's I agree with Stu, but I just think there's like ways to handle it that are a little more depth or whatever.
Yeah, I agree-ish with Stu. I do think that there's got to be, and it would be super interesting. I know I said it somewhat jokingly, referring to it as like future cancel culture or something, but when you consider like all of the different, like think about all the ways, all the different planets would, anyway, Stu continues, would report any of this kind of news. When you think about like, there's got to be some sort of like subspace internet or something. Like, my God, like the PR that like it just like the Federation in general would have to worry about, like, people are now like pulling back their applications. They don't want to be a part of it because they said that, you know, we demoted this captain for doing the right thing. Like, it has got to be like a terrible burden.
Mm-hmm. It's like they're like, oh, like these activist captains doing their job, doing like going overstepping their authority.
Look at this asshole went over here to this planet. Killed their alien overlord.
Those people chose that alien overlord. It's right there in the name, Overlord.
In fact, turns out it was a robot that they built over 300 years before.
People have the right to live under an authoritarian puppet
that they created.
Cultural differences.
My comment on the chosen champion for barter by combat? No comment.
He hates Mickey Mo.
Billups looking ready to punch a woman for an opinion he disagrees with. He's went from intentionally celibate to possibly incel in a really short time. Yeah. This Cerritos side of the story is fun, but they feel a bit relaxed considering for all they know, Mariner could be dead already. That's why they were so relaxed. They were like, finally. Aww. Freeman was the only one who wanted to save her. It was a mother's love.
Yeah.
I appreciate them not doing the what's my catchphrase thing with Boimler as acting captain. Me too, man. I didn't even think about that, but you're right.
Mm-hmm. They definitely could have.
Stu says, I don't know about the depiction of Nick's ruthlessness when First Duty ended with him taking full responsibility for the incident to spare the other squadron members from expulsion. I think there's enough there for him to have been talked down instead of killed like that. Maybe. He seems like he's gone off the rails, though, honestly.
Yeah.
Of course, there's no consequences for Freeman doing this. I know she got relieved of command once before due to false charges, but what if they had just replaced her with a different captain to create a new dynamic for the start of the next season until they get her back? Hell, they could have also heavily demoted her and made her the same rank as Mariner for a while. That could be fun. Even Tendy's departure felt underreacted to.
Or they could have like made her. They could have, right as Mariner has decided she's fully Starfleet. You know, she's like, I'm committing to the bit. I'm gonna be Starfleet, even though I'm a little like I have my own thoughts and blah blah blah. She's gonna like a little more like ready to ascend the ranks in Starfleet. Her mom gets kicked out of Starfleet and has to be like. Goes and does something different, and now you've got this like mom who is always like trying to keep her in line is now out like living outside Starfleet, whatever, running around with archaeologists or whatever.
Her mom's like, "What was the name of that lady you were running around with? That sounded fun." She's
exactly. Like she could be like out with whatever rogue band. She could get involved with like 7 of 9 and those forces or whatever.
The Fenris Rangers,
which isn't around yet. I don't believe.
I don't know.
I think this is before Fenris Rangers. I'm pretty sure.
Anyway, yeah, I would be down with that too. Stu says, speaking of Tendy, the mood of that final moment felt weirdly ominous. I was even sort of going, wait, are they going to reveal she was a deep cover spy for the Orions the whole time? That would be a twist. If you've made it through this episode, Stu, you know that is not what's going to happen. Because Mike McMahan just said she's just realizing she's Devonna Tendy.
I meant to say this when we talked about the Mike McMahan quotes. I really kind of hated those quotes because they do like sort of tell us, like I liked the ambiguity of her leaving, and it lets us for the next year or whatever speculate about like what's going to happen in a season 5 and where is she? Is she going to decide to be the mistress? Is she going to come back? Is she going to find something in between? And he sort of like answered that, and I just generally don't like when creators come out and tell me how the next season's going to shape up for a character, especially for a character development like that.
Yeah, I don't feel like he did necessarily as much as you seem to. Like, I think I felt like they were legitimate teases, lest I wouldn't have included them.
Oh, yeah.
Because we don't know exactly how this is going to play out.
And sure.
People lie all the time.
Yeah, no, that's fair. And it's very possible that, like, the stuff that he said will be coded enough that there's a lot of surprises for her character.
But the way she looked, I did assume that she was like, all right, you want me back on Orion?
Mm-hmm. Oh, yeah.
You're going to get it, and you're not going to like it. Like, that was...
Me too.
And he did confirm that.
Yeah, and she was embracing it. But yeah, I it's fine. I'm not like, pissed about it or whatever, but like, I think
right.
I think I do.
You're not throwing a baby doo-doo chin fit.
What?
You're not throwing a baby doo-doo chin fit. What?
Don't know what that is. Never heard that phrase before.
It was more for Bethany.
Okay. Hey, Bethany. that was for Bethany too.
She referred to someone once as a stupid baby doo-doo chin.
It's good. Sorry. I'm so as a podcaster, you constantly have to think about how something lands on the ears of the listener, you know? And like I have
Oh God, it's one of those lectures.
This isn't to you.
I said the wrong thing.
This isn't to you.
I'm kidding.
But I do have podcasters I work with that like don't think about that at all. You know, like it's a thing. It's like they say a joke that I have to go like, what? Explain, like you didn't set that up. Like you're laughing, but like I don't know. But like that you were just you know making a reference to your wife. But it's funny because that doesn't really bother me. I'm like a lot of times I am the guy who like facilitates the explanation, or I try to like make it make sense to the audience. Like that's part of my role. But like my niece has started to do this around the house. She just likes to walk up to me and say a punchline. Like something she saw on TikTok. And she just says the punchline without the setup. And she thinks the punchline is funny because she had the setup. But like, it's not a funny phrase in itself. And I know I know like what she's saying is meant to be funny, but it's not at all. And so I'm triggered by it now. I'm getting to the point where I'm like, because I've just been like telling her for weeks now, like, okay, that's not how humor works. You can't just walk into the room and yell chicken, and then like I don't know what that joke is. Like I know you're talking about a joke you saw earlier, but I don't know what that joke is.
I don't know, man. Maybe she's a new level of genius.
Maybe.
Don't stifle the creativity.
Maybe so.
Maybe she's like the next evolution of Norm Macdonald, who just thinks it's hilarious to bomb.
Yeah. There's a it's the old balance of like pure creativity versus skill, you know, like when you want to tell a joke, you have to understand a joke. It's like that old adage of like you got to understand the form before you can break it.
Yeah.
Otherwise, you're just like stabbing in the dark, and maybe you hit something genius, but it's just stabbing in the dark.
Yeah. Well, who's to say that a true artist needs to show their work like they're in math class?
They don't have to show their work.
Just break the shit. You don't have to prove that you understand the form. Just break it.
You don't have to prove it to anybody, but to break it well, you have to be able to know the form, I believe. It's just like music. Music's the same way. Like you gotta like know the rules of tonality so that you can do things that are different than anyone else has ever done, so that you can change them in ways that like both play on the old stuff while doing something completely new.
Yep, those are the steps to dying without being recognized for your genius, and then someone figuring out 40 years after you're dead that you were a genius.
Meh.
Critically. Oh yeah, that Van Gogh, he was actually pretty damn good.
There's examples of that in both realms. And of course, there's the other side of that, which is like the punk aesthetic, which is I intentionally don't want to learn how to use my instrument, and I'm just going to do whatever comes out sounds good to me, and I don't care how it works, you know. But I think most of the best music that comes out of that is from people who did understand. They just took the aesthetic of the punk stuff on. There's always a personal preference, but like the stuff that I like that was punk inspired is stuff like, I love Nirvana. Like it's sort of post-punk stuff that sort of like takes all the elements of pop sensibility and like infuses that sort of punk aesthetic of like, we're raw. We don't care if they're exactly in tune. There's all this weirdness happening. It sort of has a punk thing going to it, but it's like, it's pop sensible. The tonalities are there. Like they know what they're doing, even if they don't know exactly why it works. I don't know. There's a balance to it, to being like raw and talented and also knowing what you're doing. And
yeah. Dude, Dave Grohl is one of those guys that, like, when you listen to him talk, he doesn't know how to read music. He doesn't know anything.
Most rock guys don't know how to read music.
He just kind of taught himself shit, and he plays guitar like he's playing drums in his head and shit. I would heavily recommend listening to Norah Jones's podcast.
Ooh.
There's an episode that she did with him where And I think that's what she does on her podcast. She just plays with different musicians, but she's like playing stuff with Dave Grohl and having conversations with him.
That's cool. I haven't heard of this podcast. What's it called?
I don't know. Just look up Nora Jones podcast. I don't remember what it's called. It's called something. But yeah, she like the whole thing. She's like, "Oh yeah, you do this and this like a lot," and he goes, "Oh, are you gonna teach me music?"
I've played with a lot of different kinds of musicians, and like, Dave Grohl knows rock music. Like he doesn't mean he knows classical. Like classical's a different thing, and there's like reading music versus knowing music, and like knowing a certain genre. Like he knows rock and roll. Even if he thinks he likes to, I think there's some PR there where it's like, I'm just a little baby, picked up an instrument. I don't know. It just comes out. But like that guy sat in his room for years playing guitar and figuring out how to play it well and do it right and like mimicked, even if you don't learn through like reading.
Well, he says he knows cowboy chords.
Right. Yeah. That's all you need, man. It's all you need for a good songwriting. But like he recorded everything on, was it Color and Shape that he recorded everything on?
No, it was the
self-titled, maybe.
It was Foo Fighters.
Okay,
yeah, it was Foo Fighters.
The self-titled album. He recorded everything on that album, so like he clearly is not just playing cowboy chords. Like, yeah, you're playing cowboy chords as the harmony to write the songs because that's how pop songwriting works. But like he's still like shredding on that album. It's
definitely, yeah. Like he knows what he's doing. He just doesn't know what anything's called.
Oh yeah, you don't know what anything's called. I've worked with a lot of different guys, and these days I tend to hire people who do know what things are called because they're easier to communicate with. I don't know what things are called, but they can communicate with each other, and that makes things much easier. I'm like, I'm doing this, guys, and then somebody goes, "Oh, he's playing an A614, blah, blah, blah." Like, I'm like, yeah, that sounds good. Do that.
Yeah, and that's the funniest thing. Like, especially listening to this podcast, like, I don't think Dave is faking anything. Like, he's just like, "Oh yeah, we kind of do like a, oh yeah," and she's like, "Oh okay, yeah, this," and he's like, yeah. All right, sure. I don't know. That's what we're doing.
Yeah.
It's really neat.
Yeah, I'm definitely gonna check that out. Funny. That sounds awesome. It's called Nora Jones Playing Along.
Yeah.
And I'm just looking through, and I already see a bunch of people that I want to see. That I would love to listen to that. Yeah,
and I did not know about the podcast until I saw Dave Grohl was on it, and then I listened to that, and I was like, okay, well, I think I have a huge crush on Nora Jones.
Well, why wouldn't you?
Nora Jones just like geeking out about Dave Grohl and incredibly cute, not really like, just kind of adorable, not really leaning into her own proficiency and how big she is.
Mm-hmm.
You know, like she's starstruck, and that's one of the reasons I have a crush on Dave Grohl, because he also is starstruck easily.
Yeah. Oh yeah, I love that.
Like, still got that humility.
Yeah, for sure. You don't want to lose that. Okay, let's get back to Stu's CBA bag. We've been really off the rails this episode. Sorry, guys.
How you doing? Sorry. I'm not sorry, this is our podcast.
But I understand that when people come to hear Star Trek or people are going to hear our response to their feedback or whatever, and we pause and talk for 20 minutes about Nora Jones and Dave Grohl, which is like nothing to do, but I'm enjoying it. But
I mean, this is the kind of shit I love in podcasts, because I will definitely go be like looking stuff up that my favorite podcasters are
right. It's a balance for me. Like obviously this stuff is important to podcasting. Like the rabbit holes you chase are great, and like people that enjoy listening to conversations. But there's a balance. There's an audience out there for both things, and it's like you got to serve both types of people. So some people are like, "Oh man, I'm here because I've been listening for 3 years, and I just like to hear you guys talk, and you guys go on whatever rabbit trail you want." And there's the guy who this is his first podcast, and he's here for Star Trek, and it's like, he left an hour ago.
Yeah.
So I'm always trying to find that balance,
What is that stupid thing that people say? Like, if you can't handle me at my worst, you don't deserve me at my best.
That is a thing people say.
Yeah, it's dumb, but... All right, Stu continues. Despite the critiques I had, this was a good finale. It brought a number of things together from the season without having to have made the season overly serialized to get there, which is good for me because I like the largely episodic nature of the show. RDM was a great guest star, and at least there was some reference to the casting. Rutherford's take is correct, since he has superior cyborg visual acuity. Tendy's leaving is an interesting move, and one I hope actually sticks for a while until being undone. And for the record, Rutherford is just sad because he's missing his platonic friend. Okay?
Stu is very committed to that bit.
I know, and I can't wait for Rutherford to get a little stanky on his hang down to make Stu sad.
Ugh.
What?
Just save. You save the worst phrases for things, and like you love to use those worst phrases.
I think that was very classy.
Oh yeah, so classy.
Yeah.
All right. Well, that's the last one.
That's it. That's all I've got, I swear.
Thank you, Stu, for writing in. We really appreciate you inspiring us to talk about songwriting for a while. And like, I guess we'll get out of here. Do you, when's our next, like, actually official release? It's like January, February, something like that? April?
We don't know.
Oh, okay.
They haven't said.
I thought you texted me something about it being in April.
I said somewhere between January and April. That is not a date.
Oh, well, that's why I didn't remember.
An estimation.
Yeah, you're right. That is
at best.
Discovery is likely the next thing.
Discovery's going to be the next thing, unless you count them re-releasing season 1 of Prodigy on December 25th on Netflix.
That'll be a fun thing to drop on Netflix. Like, people sit around with their families and like throwing it on. You know, that's cool. I dig that. That's a smart move.
Yeah, I think it's a great move. I think the show will get eyes on it that it never did before.
Mm-hmm. I remember when I was a little kid, I was at Christmas visiting my aunt and uncle, and that's the first thing of Batman I ever saw. I was like 4 or something. I was very young, and I remember it was the first time I'd ever gone to my aunt and uncle's for Christmas. It was maybe we only ever went. They lived in like North Carolina. I think we only ever went for Christmas like twice. And one of those times I was like 4 years old, and the old '66 Batman series was thrown on by my uncle and my dad, who had like watched it as kids or whatever, you know. They threw it on, and like that was my first exposure to Batman. And so it's like that reminds me of like, oh, this is gonna be some kids sitting around Christmas watching Prodigy and like not knowing what those Starfleet symbols mean, but just thinking it's like, oh, this is a cool rock monster with a cute voice, like, you know, like, and then they're gonna like 20 years from now have seen everything. You know, I love that. It warms my heart.
Yeah. 20 years from now, they're going to be fighting with people on the internet over Star Trek. It's just letting it tear them apart.
You spend too much time with the online fandom, Dave.
I don't want. You know what? I don't that much anymore. Like I barely go onto Twitter or anywhere anymore.
You just have this vision of like all the fans.
It's not just me. You remember when we went to go see Star Trek Insurrection, and our friend Ryan. And this was 99, so no big internet here. But Ryan was like, "What if I don't like the movie? The Trekkies will eat me." Like
that's not.
Trekkies have been well renowned for being hateful.
He had that was nothing to do with Ryan thinking Trekkies were hateful. I don't think that had something to do with Ryan feeling out of place. Like he's going to a place. Sure. You could have said the same thing about like. What if I do something wrong in this church? They're going to eat me. Or what if I do something wrong in this, whatever, any environment? Like, of course, they have their own reputation.
You're right. Star Trek is a religion and a cult.
Yeah, exactly. But no, I think that mostly just anyone going into a thing they're not used to and have expectations of like a feeling like they're part of the out group, you know?
Yeah. But yeah, no, it does bug me specifically, watching people attack each other over stuff that we're supposed to enjoy.
I guess that's and like, I know you enjoy, at least you used to, I don't know, maybe you said you do it less now. I know you enjoy getting online and chatting about Star Trek and being part of those communities. You've made friends that way over the years. I
have a few Yeah, I have a few friends that way, but I don't now. I do like talking to them, but they agree with me that, attacking someone for not liking a thing or liking a thing is stupid.
I think it's much more fans like that you're talking about. It's just the ones that like to attack are the ones that are loudest because they're attacking. I think most people are just sitting and enjoying the thing, and like that's why
I hope.
Yeah, I think it's more. I think it's slanted in that direction. I really do.
But I also think that there needs to be a certain amount of admonishment, I guess, of that kind of shitty behavior, so less people come up thinking like, oh yeah, that's what I'll do. That'll be cool. I'll get be hateful to people.
Sure.
Yeah, I don't know.
I hear that, and I do. I admonish it.
I want everybody to know if you're an asshole like that, I think you're a piece of shit, and I'm gonna block you.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I hear that.
Sorry.
No. Nothing to apologize for. Well, guys, we have gone really long for this episode. I expected it to be very short.
We did.
We had covered a lot of Star Trek, and I like it.
Yeah, that's what made us go so long. Yeah.
But guys, we'll be back soon with lots more to talk about, and we love you very much. Jolan True.
Live long, prosper, all the things.
All of them.
My right titty hurts.
Ooh, I'm sorry, bud. Is it shaped like an inverted Starfleet symbol?
Why would it be?
I don't know.
No, explain your joke. It was funny, but I need to understand it more.
I don't know. That feels like a man boob shape, general man boob shape. You know,
yeah.
Swoop down, swoop up.
I see. And upside down.
Yeah, inverted.
Not really inverted. For some reason, like I thought, like inverted, like it was instead of like being a Starfleet symbol, like it was going inside, like there's like a branding or something. I don't know.
I gotcha. No, I just meant like man boob happens to.
Yeah,
I meant in the way that there's Starfleet symbols everywhere you look. Really.
Yeah, there are. My dick is a Starfleet symbol.
That sounds more like a medical issue.
It hurts so bad, Matt.
Again, that one's for Bethany. Bye, everybody.
Thank you for listening to the Star Trek Universe Podcast, a Stranded Panda production. If you'd like to hear more from David C. Roberson, check out the DC On Screen podcast or maladjusted.tv for his web videos. If you'd like to hear more from Matthew Carroll, check out the Marvel Cinematic Universe podcast or listen to his music. Just search for Matthew Carroll anywhere you get music.